The wedding dress hung in the closet like a ghost, still wrapped in plastic, tags dangling from the sleeve. Thandi stared at it, her phone pressed so hard against her ear that her hand ached. On the other end, her sister Zinle was saying something about flights and lawyers, but the words dissolved into static. "He's gone," Thandi whispered. 3 hours before the wedding and he's just gone. She had woken that morning in the Seoul hotel suite her fiancé Minho had booked, excited and nervous in equal measure. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a boutique venue in Gangnam, small and intimate, just 50 guests. After 2 years of long-distance dating between Johannesburg and Seoul, after countless video calls and expensive flights, after she'd sold her apartment and quit her job to move to Korea permanently, they were finally getting married. Except Minho wasn't answering his phone. His apartment was empty. His friends claimed they hadn't seen him since the bachelor dinner the night before. And when Thandi had frantically called his mother, the woman had simply said in broken English, "Minho make big mistake. You go home now." Then she'd hung up. Thandi had spent the next hour calling everyone she could think of, her panic rising with each unanswered call. Finally, she'd gone to the wedding venue herself, still in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, and found it completely empty. No flowers, no chairs, no decorations. The event coordinator had looked at her with pity and explained that someone had called that morning and canceled everything. The deposit was non-refundable. The guests had been notified. The wedding was off. Now Thandi sat on the hotel bed, surrounded by suitcases containing her entire life, in a country where she barely spoke the language, with a fiancé who had vanished like smoke. "I'm coming to get you," Zinle said firmly. "I'll book the next flight out. You're not staying there alone." "I can't leave. Not until I understand what happened. Not until I talk to him." "Thandi, he abandoned you on your wedding day. What more do you need to understand?" Everything? Thandi thought. She needed to understand everything, because Minho had been perfect, attentive, romantic, constantly texting her throughout the day, planning their future with meticulous detail. He'd shown her apartment listings in Seoul, talked about the restaurant he wanted to open, promised her a life more beautiful than anything she'd dreamed. People didn't just disappear. Not like this. Not without a reason. "Give me 3 days, Thandi said. "If I can't find him in 3 days, I'll come home." Zinle sighed, the sound heavy with disapproval. "Fine, 3 days, but I'm calling you every 6 hours, and if you don't answer, I'm calling the South African embassy." After they hung up, Thandi sat in the silence of the hotel room, trying to decide what to do next. Her mind felt sluggish, shock wrapping around her thoughts like fog. She needed a plan. She needed to think. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, Korean area code. She answered immediately. "Minho?" "No." The voice was male, speaking English with a thick accent. "This is Detective Park from Seoul Metropolitan Police. I'm calling about Lee Minho. You are his fiancé, correct?" Thandi's heart stopped. "Yes. Is he okay? Did something happen to him?" "I need you to come to the station. There are some questions we need to ask you." "Questions about what? Where's Minho?" "Please come to the station, Ms. Kumalo. I'll text you the address." The line went dead. Thandi dressed in a daze, her hands shaking as she pulled on jeans and a sweater. The police station was in Gangnam, a sterile building that smelled like disinfectant and coffee. Detective Park was a short man in his 50s with tired eyes and a patient expression. He led Thandi to a small interview room and gestured for her to sit. "When did you last see Lee Minho?" he asked. 2 nights ago. We had dinner together. He seemed fine, happy, excited about the wedding." Thandi's voice cracked. "What's this about? Is he in trouble?" Detective Park pulled out a folder and opened it. Inside were photographs. Minho at a restaurant with a woman Thandi didn't recognize. Minho getting into a car with the same woman. Minho entering an apartment building, the woman's hand in his. "Do you know this woman?" Detective Park asked. Thandi felt like she'd been punched. "No, who is she?" Her name is Park Soyeon. She filed a report against Lee Min-ho 3 days ago, claiming he defrauded her of approximately 60 million won. That's impossible. Min-ho would never... According to Ms. Park, she and Mr. Lee were in a relationship for the past 8 months. He told her he was a restaurant investor, convinced her to invest in a new venture, and then disappeared with the money. The room tilted. 8 months? That's impossible. He was with me. We were planning our wedding. Detective Park's expression was carefully neutral. Ms. Kumalo, how much money have you given to Lee Min-ho? The question hit like a slap. Thandi's mind raced backward through the past 2 years. The apartment deposit Min-ho said he'd paid but never showed her receipts for. The restaurant business plan he'd asked her to invest in. $30,000 from her savings. The wedding costs he'd assured her he was handling. Another $15,000 she'd transferred just last month. "This can't be real," she whispered. "We were getting married today." "Were you?" Detective Park pulled out another document, this one in Korean with official-looking stamps. "This is a marriage registration. Lee Min-ho registered his marriage to Park Soyeon 4 months ago." The words on the page swam before Thandi's eyes. She couldn't read Korean, but she recognized Min-ho's signature at the bottom. Next to it was a date, July 15th, 2 months after he'd proposed to Thandi on a beach in Cape Town. "I don't understand," Thandi said, though understanding was beginning to creep in like ice water through her veins. "If he's married to her, why would he plan a wedding with me?" "That's what we're trying to determine. Miss Park isn't the first woman to file a complaint against him. There are 3 others, all foreign women, all claiming similar fraud. We believe Mr. Lee has been running an elaborate confidence scheme." Thandi stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need air. I need to get out of here." "Miss Kumalo, please sit down. I have more questions." But Thandi was already moving toward the door, her chest tight, her vision narrowing to a tunnel. She stumbled out of the police station into the cold November air and kept walking. No destination in mind, just desperate movement to outrun the truth that was chasing her. She'd been so stupid, so blindingly, catastrophically stupid. Her phone rang, unknown number again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Thandi." Min-ho's voice, soft and familiar, sent a shock through her system like electricity. "Where are you?" she demanded. "What the hell is going on?" "I can explain everything, but not over the phone. Meet me at Bongyunsa Temple in 1 hour. Come alone, and don't tell the police, please. If you ever loved me, just give me a chance to explain. You're married. You took my money. You left me at the altar. What explanation could possibly... I'm trying to protect you. There are people looking for me, dangerous people. And if they think you know where I am, they'll come after you too. Please, Thandi, 1 hour. Just let me explain, and then you never have to see me again." Against every instinct of self-preservation, Thandi heard herself say, 1 hour. Bongunsa Temple was beautiful and serene, all sweeping roofs and ancient trees, completely at odds with the chaos in Thandi's chest. She found Min-ho sitting on a bench near the main hall, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses despite the overcast sky. He looked thinner than she remembered, shadows under his eyes, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. When he saw her, he stood, reaching out as if to embrace her. She stepped back, crossing her arms. "Start talking." Min-ho's hands dropped. "Everything I told you was a lie. My name isn't Lee Min-ho. I don't own a restaurant. I'm not from Seoul originally. I'm from Busan, and I've been running cons for the past 6 years." The blunt admission was somehow worse than if he'd tried to deny it. Thandi felt tears burning her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "Why me? What did I do to deserve this?" "You were easy," Min-ho said, and the casual cruelty of it made her flinch. Then his expression crumpled. "No, that's not true. That's not fair. At first, yes, you were a mark, foreign, successful, lonely, looking for connection. But then I got to know you, and you were so goddamn kind, so genuine, and I started to actually care, which was a mistake, because people like me don't get to care. People like you are sociopaths. People like me are drowning in debt to the wrong kind of people. Minho pulled off his sunglasses, and Thandi saw a fresh bruise purpling his left cheekbone. I owe money to a loan shark in Busan. 200 million won. If I don't pay by the end of the month, they'll kill me. Not metaphorically, literally. So you scammed 4 women to pay off your debt. 5. You're number 5. Minho's laugh was bitter. And I still don't have enough. The wedding money you sent, the investment in the restaurant, all of it is already gone. I used it to buy more time, but time runs out eventually. Thandi should have walked away. Should have called Detective Park and told him exactly where to find this man who'd destroyed her life. Instead, she found herself asking, "Who's Park Soyeon? Are you actually married to her?" No. That marriage registration is fake. Soyeon is another victim, but she's smarter than most. When she figured out what I was doing, she went to the police. The marriage certificate was part of her evidence. And the other women? 1 in America, 1 in China, 2 in Southeast Asia, all following the same pattern. Meet them online, romance them, get them to invest in fake business ventures, and disappear before they realize what happened. Minho sat back down on the bench, suddenly looking exhausted. You want to know the truth? I was going to go through with the wedding. I was actually going to marry you. Thandi's breath caught. Why? Because I'm tired. Because the people I owe money to are closing in, and I thought if I had a wife, a real relationship, maybe I could stop running. Maybe I could find a way out. He looked up at her, and his eyes were wet. I know that sounds insane. I know I have no right to ask this, but I need your help, Thandi. I need 70 million won in the next 2 weeks, or I'm dead. The audacity of it left her speechless. You want me to give you more money. I want you to help me steal it from the person who started all this, the loan shark in Busan. His name is Choi Da-sung, and he's the reason I'm in this mess. How is he responsible for your decision to scam innocent women? Because 6 years ago, I had a legitimate restaurant in Busan. It was doing well, making profit, until Choi decided he wanted it. He sent people to vandalize the place, threaten my suppliers, and attack my staff. Then he offered to buy me out for a fraction of what it was worth. I refused, so he had his thugs beat me half to death and burn the restaurant down. Minho's voice hardened. The 200 million won debt? That's what he claimed I owed him for lost revenue when I refused his offer. It's extortion, pure and simple. I've been paying him for 6 years, and the interest keeps compounding. I'll never be free unless I pay it all at once. Or you could go to the police. You think the police in Busan aren't on his payroll? You think I haven't tried? Minho stood and moved closer to her. Choi keeps all his cash in a safe at his nightclub in Seomyeon. If we can get in, get that money, I can pay off the debt and disappear properly. You'll never see me again. And you can tell the other women where to find their money, too. Thandi laughed, the sound sharp and slightly hysterical. You want me to help you rob a loan shark, a violent criminal, with you, a man who's done nothing but lie to me since we met. Yes, this is insane. Completely insane, Minho agreed. But you came here, didn't you? Even after everything, you came to meet me, which means part of you wants answers. Part of you wants justice, and part of you is just angry enough to consider something crazy. He was right, and Thandi hated that he was right. She was angry, furious actually, not just at Minho, but at herself for being fooled, at the universe for being so arbitrarily cruel, at every system and circumstance that had led her to this moment. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and drop a comment telling us what you think Thandi should do. How would it even work? She found herself asking. Minho pulled out his phone and opened a folder of photos. Choi's nightclub. I worked there for 3 months when I first got to Busan before I opened my restaurant. I know the layout, the security systems when he counts the cash. Friday nights are his biggest revenue days. He'll have at least 100 million won in the safe, possibly more. And you can crack the safe? No, but you can. Thandi blinked. I'm a marketing consultant. I don't know anything about cracking safes. You told me once your father was a locksmith in Johannesburg. You used to help him with jobs when you were a kid. Minho scrolled through his phone and pulled up a photo of a safe. This is a Gardex 3500. Your father had the same model in his shop. You told me you used to practice on it for fun. The fact that he remembered this detail from a conversation over a year ago was somehow more disturbing than anything else. That was 15 years ago. I was a child. But you remember how it works? She did. The muscle memory of turning the dial, listening for the clicks, feeling for the resistance. Her father had taught her because he said everyone should know how to solve puzzles, how to think spatially. She'd love those sessions in his workshop, the smell of metal and oil, the satisfaction when tumblers finally aligned. This is a terrible idea, Thandi said. Absolutely terrible, Minho agreed. If we get caught, we'll go to prison, or worse. Almost certainly. And even if we succeed, you'll take the money and disappear, and I'll never see you or my money again. Probably. Minho pocketed his phone. But you'll have the satisfaction of taking from someone who deserves to lose. And you'll have evidence of all my other scams. I'll give you names, account numbers, everything you need to help the other women recover their money. Some kind of restitution for what I did. Thandi wanted to say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to walk away, call Detective Park, get on a plane back to Johannesburg, and forget Korea ever existed. But rationality had nothing to do with the cold fury burning in her chest, the need to turn her humiliation into action, to reclaim some sense of control. If I agree to this, I have conditions, she said slowly. First, you give me all the evidence now, before we do anything. Names, accounts, everything. I forward it to someone I trust, with instructions to send it to the police if I don't check in daily. Minho nodded. Done. Second, after we get the money, you pay me back first. Every one I gave you, plus interest. Agreed. Third, you disappear. Not to another country to start this scheme again. You actually disappear. Change your name, get a normal job, stop hurting people. I can try. Not good enough. You will. Or I'll hunt you down myself and turn you into every police department in Asia. Thandi stepped closer, looking him directly in the eyes. Do you understand me, Minho, or whatever your real name is? This is your one chance to do something right. Don't waste it. For a long moment they stared at each other. Then Minho nodded. My real name is Kim Junpyo, and I promise you, Thandi, after this, I'm done. They spent the next 3 days planning. Minho provided detailed blueprints of the nightclub, security schedules, patterns of when Choi was most likely to be distracted. Thandi researched everything she could about Busan, about the neighborhood where the club was located, about safe-cracking techniques she'd half forgotten. They didn't talk about personal things, didn't acknowledge the strange intimacy of working together after everything that had happened. When their hands brushed while reviewing documents, they both pulled back like they'd been burned. On the third night, Thandi sat in her hotel room and composed an email to Zinle. It contained every piece of evidence Minho had given her, names and account numbers and confession of frauds. At the bottom, she wrote, If you don't hear from me by Sunday, send this to Detective Park at Seoul Metropolitan Police. I love you. I'm sorry. She scheduled the email to send in 72 hours and tried not to think about all the ways this plan could go, catastrophically, wrong. They took the KTX train to Busan Friday morning, keeping their distance from each other, pretending to be strangers. The nightclub was in a busy district, surrounded by restaurants and shops, neon signs advertising everything from karaoke to massage parlors. Choi's place was called Dragon Palace, 3 stories of chrome and colored lights with a bouncer the size of a small building guarding the entrance. We go in at 11, Minho murmured as they walked past, not looking at each other. Peak crowd time. Choi will be in his office on the 3rd floor, counting money. The safe is behind a painting of a tiger. Security cameras are on a 20-minute loop that resets at 11:15. We'll have a 15-minute window. How do we get past the bouncer? You'll see. At 10:45, Thandi watched from across the street as a woman approached Dragon Palace. She was young, dressed in a tight dress and impossibly high heels, and she was screaming at someone on her phone in rapid Korean. As she got to the entrance, she stumbled, her heel catching on the pavement, and went sprawling directly into the bouncer. The distraction lasted exactly long enough for Minho to slip through the door with a crowd of laughing businessmen. Thandi followed 30 seconds later, her heart hammering, wearing a black dress she'd bought that afternoon and makeup that made her look 5 years older. Inside, the club was an assault of sound and strobe lights, packed with people drinking and dancing. Minho had already disappeared into the crowd. Thandi made her way to the bar, ordered a drink she had no intention of drinking, and waited. At 11:10, the lights flickered. Scheduled power fluctuation, Minho had said, happens every Friday like clockwork because the building's electrical system is ancient. In the moment of confusion, Thandi slipped through a door marked Staff Only and took the back stairs to the 3rd floor. Minho was already there, picking the lock on Choi's office. You're late. By 30 seconds, relax. The lock clicked open. Inside, the office was surprisingly tasteful, all dark wood and leather furniture. The painting of the tiger hung on the far wall, exactly where Minho said it would be. Behind it, the safe. Thandi's hands were shaking as she knelt in front of it. Gardex 3500, just like Minho promised. She pressed her ear against the metal, closed her eyes, and started turning the dial. The muscle memory came back slowly at first, then faster. Click, resistance, turn, click. How long? Minho asked, keeping watch at the door. Shut up, I'm concentrating. The minutes stretched. Thandi's palms were sweating, making the dial slippery. She wiped them on her dress and started again. Click, turn, click. The final tumbler fell into place and the door swung open. Inside were stacks of cash, more money than Thandi had ever seen in one place. Minho moved immediately, pulling a bag from his jacket and starting to transfer bundles. How much? Thandi asked. Don't know, don't care. Take as much as we can carry. They worked in frantic silence, stuffing money into bags. Thandi's mind was screaming that this was wrong, that they were going to get caught, that this was the stupidest thing she'd ever done. But her hands kept moving, kept taking, reclaiming something even if it wasn't exactly what she'd lost. The office door opened. A man stood in the doorway, 50-ish, wearing an expensive suit, his face hardening as he took in the scene. Behind him were 2 massive men who looked like they broke bones for a living. Kim Junpyo, Choi Dae-sung said softly. I was wondering when you'd be stupid enough to try something like this. Minho straightened slowly, his hand moving towards something in his jacket. We're taking what you stole. I stole nothing. You borrowed money. Money has to be repaid. Choi's eyes flicked to Thandi. And who's this? Another one of your victims? Leave her out of this. Oh, I don't think so. Choi stepped into the office, his men flanking him. You break into my club, steal my money, you both pay the price. What happened next unfolded in a blur. Minho pulled something from his jacket, not a weapon, but a phone, holding it up so Choi could see the screen. Everything is being recorded, audio and video, streaming to a secure server. If anything happens to us, it all goes to the police. Your extortion, your illegal operations, everything. Choi's expression didn't change. You think I'm afraid of the police? You think I've survived this long by being afraid? No. But you're afraid of your competitors finding out how much money you keep in that safe, how vulnerable you actually are. Minho's hand was steady, his voice calm. We're taking this money and walking out. You're going to let us, because if you don't, I'll make sure every gang in Busan knows exactly where to find your cash and how weak your security is." The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Choi studied Minho with the cold assessment of a predator calculating odds. Finally, he smiled. "Take the money. But know this, Kim Jumpyo, you don't get to run anymore. I'll find you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And when I do, you'll wish you died tonight." "I'll take my chances." Choi stepped aside, and Thandi didn't wait to see if he'd change his mind. She grabbed the bags and ran, Minho right behind her, down the stairs and through the club and out into the cold Busan night. They didn't stop running until they were 6 blocks away, gasping for breath in an alley behind a convenience store. "That was insane," Thandi managed, her heart feeling like it might explode. "That was completely insane. But we're alive." Minho was smiling, actually smiling, high on adrenaline and survival. "We did it." They took a taxi to Busan Station, then the first KTX train back to Seoul, the bags of money hidden in innocuous shopping bags. The entire ride, Thandi kept expecting police to storm the train, to arrest them, to end this nightmare properly. But nothing happened. They arrived in Seoul just after 2 a.m., the city quiet and cold. In a hotel room Minho had booked under a fake name. They counted the money. 140 million won, enough to pay off Minho's debt and return what he'd taken from Thandi, with some left over. "Your $45,000 comes out to about 60 million won, Minho said, separating bills into stacks. "Here." Thandi stared at the money. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow. "What about the other women? Park Soyeon and the others?" "The evidence I gave you has their account information. Once I'm clear of Choi, I'll make sure money gets transferred back to them anonymously." "Why should I believe you?" Minho met her eyes. "Because for whatever it's worth, I'm telling you the truth now. I've lied about everything else, but not this. I'll make it right as I can anyway." Thandi wanted to believe him. Some stupid, stubborn part of her still wanted to believe there was something salvageable in this man who destroyed her life. "What will you do now?" "Disappear. Really disappear this time. Maybe Thailand, maybe Vietnam. Somewhere Choi can't reach me." Minho handed her another stack of bills. "Extra. For your trouble. For everything I put you through." "I don't want your money." "Then donate it. Burn it. I don't care." He stood and moved toward the door. "I should go. Police are probably still looking for me, and you don't need to be connected to this any more than you already are. Minho, Junpyo, whatever your name is." Thandi stood as well. "Don't do this again. Don't hurt anyone else. Promise me." He paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I promise I'll try to be better. That's the best I can offer." Then he was gone, and Thandi was alone in a hotel room with a bag full of stolen money and a heart full of confusion and anger and something that might have been grief. She flew back to Johannesburg 2 days later after giving a carefully edited statement to Detective Park that omitted the Busan robbery entirely. The money she'd recovered, she told him, had been returned by Minho as part of an anonymous restitution. It was technically true. Park didn't look entirely convinced, but he didn't press her either. Zinlei picked her up from the airport, took one look at her face, and pulled her into a bone-crushing hug. "You look terrible." "I feel terrible. Tell me everything." And Thandi did, the whole ridiculous, painful, illegal story. When she finished, Zinlei was silent for a long moment. "You robbed a nightclub," she said finally. "Technically, we robbed alone. Shark. You committed a felony in a foreign country with a con artist who abandoned you at the altar. When you put it that way, it sounds really bad." Zinlei started laughing, the sound slightly hysterical. "It is really bad. It's the worst thing I've ever heard, and also kind of amazing. Is that wrong? That I think my sister being an international criminal is kind of amazing?" Despite everything, Thandi smiled. "Definitely wrong. Are you okay, though?" Really okay. Thandi considered the question. Was she okay? She'd been scammed, humiliated, involved in a robbery, and had her heart broken in the most spectacular way possible. But she'd also fought back. She'd taken action instead of collapsing. She'd proven to herself that she was stronger than her worst day. "I think I will be," she said finally, "eventually." 3 months later, Thandi received an email from an unknown address. No message, just a link to a news article. She clicked it and found a story about Park Soyeon and 3 other women receiving anonymous restitution for fraud committed by a man now believed to have left Korea. Attached to the article was a note, "Kept my promise. Be well. Jay." She deleted the email immediately, then sat staring at her computer screen for a long time. 6 months after that, she received a postcard from Vietnam. No return address, no signature, just a picture of a beach and 2 words written in English. "Thank you." She burned the postcard and tried to convince herself she felt nothing. A year later, Thandi's business was thriving. She'd used the experience to pivot her marketing consultancy to focus on helping small businesses avoid fraud and scams, drawing on her own painful expertise. She'd written an article about her experience, heavily sanitized, that had gone viral and led to speaking engagements. She was successful. She was healing. She was moving forward. And then one evening, as she was closing her office, a man walked in. Tall, Korean, handsome in a way that made her heart stutter before her brain caught up. But it wasn't him, just someone who looked similar in the dim light. "Sorry," the man said in accented English. "I'm looking for a marketing consultant. I have an appointment." Thandi checked her calendar and found the name, Park Junho. A new client wanted to discuss branding for a restaurant he was opening. She gestured to a chair, a professional smile in place. "Of course. Please sit. Tell me about your business." As he began to talk, describing his vision and his dreams, Thandi found herself relaxing. This was her life now, helping people, building something real, learning to trust again carefully and slowly. Korea felt like a lifetime ago. Minho or Junpyo, or whatever his name really was, felt like a person from a story she'd heard rather than lived. The scars were still there, would probably always be there, but they were becoming part of her history rather than her present. And that, she decided, was enough. That night, before leaving the office, she pulled up the email from Jay one last time. She'd never actually deleted it, just archived it where she wouldn't accidentally see it. She read it again, those 2 simple sentences, and then she permanently deleted it. Some stories don't get happy endings. Some people don't get redemption arcs. Sometimes you just survive, and survival itself is the victory. Thandi locked her office, walked out into the Johannesburg evening, and went home to the life she'd rebuilt from ruins. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't the life she'd dreamed of when she'd boarded that plane to Seoul with a wedding dress in her suitcase. But it was hers, completely, authentically hers. And that was worth more than any romance, any promise, any beautiful lie could ever be. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to this channel, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and hit that like button to help others find this story. Your support means everything. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next story.